At 8:32 a.m., the warning siren at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson is still echoing when the lead F-22 Raptor tears down the runway and climbs hard into the cold Alaska sky. There is no slow build-up, no time to hesitate. Roughly 400 miles away, two Russian Tu-95 Bear H strategic aircraft, escorted by a pair of Su-35 Flanker E fighters, are already approaching the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone. These aircraft are known for carrying long-range KH-101 cruise systems, designed to fly low, travel far, and reach targets deep inland. The American pilots push their engines to full power, racing to intercept the formation before it reaches a critical position. At the edge of the Arctic, two global powers are now moving toward a tense, high-speed standoff. But the situation started much earlier, far below the clouds. At 7:15 a.m., the USS Hopper, a 9,000-ton Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, was cutting through 10-foot Arctic waves in the Gulf of Alaska. The ship was not simply patrolling. It was acting as a powerful floating sensor platform. Its SPY-1D phased array radar, the core of the Aegis combat system, was already working through Russian electronic interference. The Hopper detected the Russian aircraft while they were still in international airspace, tracking their altitude, speed, and direction with precision. Instead of remaining quiet, the crew sent the information through Link 16, a secure tactical network that functions like a high-speed battlefield internet. By 7:45 a.m., the Aegis system had already shared a highly accurate track with NORAD headquarters. That gave the American side valuable time to prepare, coordinate, and place every part of its defense network in position. The USS Hopper did more than observe. It helped keep the Russian formation boxed in digitally, working alongside Space Force satellites to make sure the Tu-95 Bear H aircraft could not disappear beyond the curve of the Earth. Inside the ship's Combat Information Center, sailors were already running simulations, calculating where defensive interceptors would meet any long-range systems if the Russian aircraft attempted to launch them. By 9 a.m., the air above the Bering Strait had turned into a tactical chessboard. An E-3 Sentry AWACS was flying at 30,000 feet, its rotating APY-2 radar dome sweeping the sky like a massive searchlight. The AWACS was not just watching, it was guiding the F-22 Raptors into a silent pincer movement. The Tu-95 Bear H aircraft were easy to recognize. Their massive NK-12 turboprop engines produced a sound signature so strong that even underwater monitoring systems could detect the vibration. But the Su-35 Flanker E escorts were trying to stay ahead of the Americans, using their sensors to search for any sign of the approaching fighters. The F-22s answered with silence. At 9:12 a.m., the lead Raptor pilot performed a sharp split S maneuver, dropping out of the sun to stay hidden in the Russian fighters' blind spots. He was not relying on his own radar yet. Instead, he was receiving live data from the AWACS and the USS Hopper directly into his helmet-mounted display. The American jets used their AN/APG-77 AESA radar in a low-profile mode, shifting frequencies so quickly that Russian sensors would struggle to separate the signal from background noise. The Russian pilots searched the horizon for targets, unaware that the F-22s were already positioned above and behind them. At 9:15 a.m., the American pilots armed their systems. Digital locks appeared on all four Russian aircraft. The F-22's AN/ALR-94 electronic warfare suite is already studying the Russian jets, identifying their radar patterns and storing every signal for future analysis. The Russian formation is moving into a situation where every choice it makes is already being answered by a larger network it cannot see. The first real surprise comes at 9:20 a.m. Without any warning from their onboard systems, two F-22 Raptors suddenly appear beside the Russian aircraft. The American jets did not simply approach them. They used stealth, timing, and positioning so effectively that it looked as if they had appeared out of nowhere. The Raptors slide into formation near the wingtips, moving with calm precision beside the huge turboprop aircraft. Using thrust vectoring engines, they hold a slow, controlled, high-angle maneuver that sends a clear message without a single word. We have been here for a while, and you only noticed us now. Every American fighter is prepared for a scenario the pilots have trained for countless times. Each F-22 carries 6 AIM-12OD AMRAAMs inside its internal bays, keeping the aircraft's stealth profile clean. These long-range air-to-air interceptors can travel more than 100 miles and guide themselves in the final phase. The pilots also have 2 AIM-9X Sidewinders available for close-range situations. With the AIM-9X and helmet-mounted targeting, a pilot can cue the system simply by looking toward an opposing aircraft, even if the Raptor itself is not pointed directly at it. By 9:35 a.m., the Russian Su-35 pilots try to apply pressure. They bank toward the Americans, attempting to force them to react. but the Raptor pilots remain steady. They use the F-22's superior agility to stay behind the Russian fighters, holding the most dominant position in air-to-air maneuvering. The Su-35 is a powerful machine with Saturn AL-41F-1S engines and 3D thrust vectoring capability. But on this mission, it is carrying external fuel tanks and R-77 air-to-air systems, adding drag and limiting its performance. The F-22, with everything stored internally, remains smooth, fast, and clean through the air. Inside the cockpit, the American pilots stay composed. Their communication runs through secure tactical systems, keeping every movement connected to the larger network. It is the quiet confidence of efficiency, a costly Russian formation being placed inside a tactical box by pilots who have not had to force the situation. While the tension in the sky continues, the U.S. Navy provides another layer of protection from the surface. At 9:45 a.m., the USS Hopper and the USS Kidd have their Mark 41 vertical launch systems ready. Each destroyer represents a multi-domain defense platform worth roughly $1.8 billion, designed to respond to challenges in the air, on the surface, and beneath the waves. Had the Russian aircraft released a KH-101 cruise system, the destroyers were prepared to respond with SM-6 interceptors. The SM-6, costing around $4.3 million per unit, can engage everything from low-flying cruise systems to advanced high-speed targets in their final approach phase. Because of cooperative engagement capability, the Hopper would not need to rely only on its own radar. It could launch based on tracking data from the AWACS aircraft, allowing the interceptor to meet the incoming system long before the destroyer could detect it directly over the horizon. At the same time, the Navy is watching the undersea domain. By 9:50 a.m., a P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft is circling about 50 miles away. It has deployed a pattern of SSQ-53G sonobuoys to make sure no Russian submarine is using the aerial encounter as a distraction. The Poseidon carries Mark 54 lightweight torpedoes, while its AN/APY-10 radar scans the surface for anything unusual. The Russian formation is not facing only two fighters. It is facing a connected defensive wall that reaches from the seafloor to the edge of near space. The coordination is extremely tight. The P-8A shares acoustic information with the USS Hopper. The Hopper adds that data to the larger operating picture. That picture is then shared with the F-22s, giving the pilots a level of awareness the opposing side cannot match. At 10:15 a.m., American endurance becomes part of the message. A KC-135 Stratotanker meets the F-22s over the Beaufort Sea for mid-air refueling. The Raptors can remain on station as long as the pilots can continue the mission. Supporting them is the KC-46 Pegasus, ensuring the entire network stays fueled and active. Keeping an F-22 airborne can cost around $85,000 per hour, but the strategic value is obvious. By spending several $1 million on the operation, the U.S. military demonstrates that it can manage a serious long-range challenge before it ever reaches a dangerous stage. The economics of this moment are striking. For the cost of a small real estate project, the United States shows that Russia's older strategic aviation fleet can be contained by a modern, connected defense network. Alaska's critical infrastructure, the port of Anchorage, and the shipping lanes carrying billions in annual trade remain protected. The Russian Tu-95s, expensive to maintain and operate, are left with no clear advantage. After hours of pressure from the air, sea, space, and undersea domains, they are forced to turn away without accomplishing their mission. Their low-profile KH-101 cruise systems never even had the opportunity to leave their racks. This was not only a military success, it was an economic signal. It told global markets that the Arctic trade routes remained secure, and that America's energy infrastructure in the north was still protected. At 10:20 a.m., the professionalism of the KC-46 Pegasus boom operator showed the human side of this massive machine. While the fighters moved through rough Arctic turbulence, the refueling boom was guided with incredible precision. That allowed the F-22 pilots to take on fuel while keeping their focus on the Russian aircraft. It was a smooth, controlled transition that many air forces would struggle to perform even in clear daylight, let alone during a tense real-world intercept near the edge of contested airspace. At 10:45 a.m., the Russian bombers finally turned west, heading back toward the Russian Far East. The F-22s stayed with them until they were well outside the air defense identification zone, making sure there was no last-second maneuver or unexpected change in direction. Even as the Russian aircraft moved away, the AWACS and the USS Hopper continued tracking them for another 300 miles. The American system did not stop working simply because the formation was leaving. It kept collecting information. The USS Hopper used its AN/SLQ-32V 6 electronic warfare suite to record the radar signatures and radio frequencies coming from the Russian Su-35s. That information was the true strategic prize. This process is known as electronic fingerprinting. Every radar has its own pattern, power behavior, and pulse rhythm. By capturing those details at 10:55 a.m., the U.S. Navy gained a clearer picture of how those specific Russian aircraft operated in the field. The data would later be uploaded into central intelligence systems, where it could help improve the electronic protection and response profiles of other American ships and aircraft across the fleet. The Russian formation did not simply fail to reach its objective. It also revealed valuable electronic behavior to the very network it was trying to challenge. By 11:30 a.m., the F-22s were back on the runway at Elmendorf-Richardson. The mission in the air was over, but the data review was only beginning. The lesson from the encounter was clear. The Arctic is no longer an empty frontier. It is a connected operational space where information moves faster than aircraft and where the side with the better network controls the tempo. The U.S. Navy and NORAD had shown that the northern approach was closely guarded. Even in one of the most remote regions on Earth, American technology could build a full-spectrum view of the situation and leave the opposing side with almost no room for surprise. Still, the most impressive part of the entire system was human performance. The F-22 pilot was not just flying an aircraft. He was managing information, reading live feeds, processing tactical updates, and controlling one of the most advanced aircraft ever built. He was doing all of that while maneuvering under extreme pressure in a freezing cockpit, supported by sailors aboard the USS Hopper who were turning radar signals, satellite input, and electronic data into one clear operational picture. That combination of discipline, technology, and training is what made the American response so effective. Meanwhile, the Russian crews were heading back to base with an uncomfortable question waiting for them. How had a formation worth hundreds of millions of dollars been controlled by a network they could barely detect? This intercept did more than protect Alaska. It sent a message to every major competitor watching from a distance. Challenging the U.S. Navy and Air Force inside an integrated defense environment is not just difficult. It means stepping into a system designed to see first, decide first, and respond first. The response chain was too fast. The sensors were too sharp. The coordination was too precise. As the Russian aircraft returned home, their crews had to face the reality that they had never truly controlled the encounter. From the moment their engines started, they had already entered an American tactical framework built around detection, patience, and total coordination. Now imagine you are the tactical action officer aboard the USS Hopper. It is 9:30 a.m. The Russian bombers are still being tracked on your SPY-1D radar. Suddenly, your sonar team reports a contact that appears biological at first glance, but it is moving at nearly 40 miles per hour. That is far too fast for a natural undersea contact. A new possibility appears on your screen. A Russian Beret-class strategic submarine may be using the air intercept as cover, attempting to slip past your position while everyone's attention is focused above the clouds. At the same moment, the E-3 AWACS reports a new development. One of the Su-35 Flanker E escorts has turned its nose toward the F-22s and activated its electronic interference systems. Now the decision becomes critical. You are aboard the USS Hopper, managing the tactical picture with limited bandwidth on the Link 16 network. Do you prioritize sending the possible submarine contact to the P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft, giving it the data it needs to investigate the undersea threat? Or do you focus your electronic warfare support on helping the F-22s cut through the Su-35's interference and maintain control of the airspace? If the undersea contact is ignored, it could move into a dangerous strategic position. If the electronic interference is ignored, the F-22s could lose part of their tactical advantage and be pulled into a much riskier close-range encounter. So the question becomes simple, but the answer is not. Do you divide your attention and risk being only partly effective in both areas? Or do you commit fully to the air threat and assume the undersea contact is only a distraction? What would your move be? Share your tactics below. How would you manage the entire defense network when every second matters and every decision affects the next one? In the modern battle space, the invisible contest is often won before anything is seen with the naked eye. Victory belongs to the side that can collect, process, and act on information faster than the other side can react. The Russian Tu-95s and Su-35s came looking for a gap. Instead, they found a connected American defense network that gave them almost no room to maneuver. From the sea surface to the skies above Alaska, every sensor, aircraft, ship, and operator became part of one coordinated picture. The result was clear. The U.S. military's integrated power remains one of the strongest forces in the Arctic, keeping the northern approach protected and the rules of the air firmly under American control. If you want more second-by-second breakdowns of how American defense networks use coordination, technology, and real-time data to maintain stability, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We will keep breaking down the systems, strategies, and decisions that shape the modern front line. The situation described in this video is a technical and tactical analysis inspired by reports of U.S. intercepts of Russian aircraft near Alaska. While the military platforms, technical details, and regional tensions are based on real-world assets and known capabilities, the specific sequence of events shown here is a hypothetical dramatization created to explain U.S. Navy and NORAD doctrine, defensive systems, and operational coordination. Until next time, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep your eyes on the horizon.